Welcome to Gnorm's Gnews Nuggets. Today in human stupidity, politicians yelling, markets panicking, and someone somewhere definitely pressed the wrong button. And you people wonder why the gnomes drink.
Well, welcome, folks, to another edition of Gnorm's News Nuggets. News, culture, and rapid takes, companion to the Gangsters with Flags episode of Talking to the Machine. News stories from the past week with commentary by an angry gnome and a drunken leprechaun. Seamus, Norm, boys, pull your chairs in. It's late, and once again, the cameras were on the wrong story. So, Friday morning, when everyone was watching the Kuwait airport blow up, the Senate passed this $70 billion bill to fund ICE and the Border Patrol for the next 3 years. So, missing out of this was any legislation to actually help the U.S. public. No health care funding, no reeling in of Trump's $1.7 billion slush fund of the taxpayers' money, no bringing our troops home and getting us out of an illegal war. But hey, we can fund a department of government that storms our cities en masse and shoots U.S. citizens and then calls the victims terrorists. We can find money for that, but no money that actually directly helps the U.S. public. So it should also be noted, one Republican, Thomas Massie, crossed the aisle to vote against the funding because he wasn't down with any of that nonsense. He wasn't down with what happened in Minneapolis and Chicago. And at least one Republican didn't vote to fund ICE and continue its rampage across the country. Norm, you're up first, and don't be polite.
Of course these suit-wearing sociopaths passed a $70 billion enforcement retainer at 4 in the goddamn morning while you mouth-breathers were doom-scrolling the Gulf crisis. A 52-47 vote to lock in 3 years of funding, plus a $1.776 billion slush fund that even Houston and Sullivan tried to kill. It's weapons-grade gangster math. They staged a spectacle in Iran so you brainless fucks wouldn't notice the massive protection racket being signed in the dark. Fuck you, world.
Now, Seamus, what does it mean when 3 years of enforcement money is locked in and nobody will put a leash on a slush fund flagged as a possible payoff to people who stormed the Capitol, and they do it on a Friday morning when nobody was watching?
Ah, Norm, breathe, you angry garden ornament. You're making more noise than the 52 senators who pulled a $70 billion heist at 4 in the feckin' morning. It's a classic trick. Use the Iran fireworks to distract the marks while locking in a 3-year enforcement retainer and a $1.776 billion slush fund for their favourite persecuted lads. When a republic funds its own muscle 3 years past any accountability, it's not a budget, it's a ransom note written in the dark.
Story 2, the choke point and the theater. Same show, new week, worse footage. Did we just talk about this one last week? Iranian drones hit the Kuwait International Airport in targets in Bahrain, and the U.S. and Iran trade fire in the wee hours of the morning. Drones, missiles, air raid sirens in Manama. CENTCOM calls it self-defense. Iran calls it retaliation. Are we understanding the pattern here? Okay. Like the one we just covered in the last episode. Remember the gangsters, the protection racket? So the deal, the one that's been 50-50, largely negotiated, then a complete fabrication, then awaiting a final determination, that's now a tentative 60-day extension. Iran's foreign minister says there's no significant progress. And 3 weeks, same sentence, different Tuesday. Seamus, 600 years of European wars is your territory. Walk me through what an honest historian sees in a ceasefire that requires additional strikes and additional firing to maintain it.
Ah, here we go. A ceasefire so peaceful it just rained drones on Kuwait and Bahrain, leaving 1 dead and 60 injured, while the Almost a Deal script enters its 3rd bloody week of reruns. Historically, when an armistice requires fresh violence to stay in place, it's not a path to peace, it's just a staging period for whichever bastard needs to reload. 3 weeks of unspecified changes and no progress isn't a negotiation, it's a punchline with a body count.
Norm, back him up on this. Does anyone really know what's going on here?
Shut up, Seamus, you drunken lawn ornament. History doesn't matter when we're trapped in a 3-week loop of industrial-strength bullshit. We've got 1 dead and 60-plus injured in Kuwait and Bahrain, while the pumpkin McPornhumper and those Iranian shitheels read the same goddamn almost a deal script for the 21st day in a row. This isn't diplomacy, it's weapons-grade gaslighting designed to keep the brainless fucking morons at home from realizing the ceasefire is just a low-grade war with a better publicist.
Story 3, another bill that came due for the war. In the stories that nobody talked about. On Thursday, the numbers came in from the UN, World Food Program. The closure of the Straits of Hormuz, in addition to all the other BS that it's causing, has driven an additional 6 million people into acute hunger in multiple countries that got nothing to do with the war. We're not at war with them. These are just the indirect effects of the ass-tastic idiot fest that's going on in the Middle East right now in this illegal war. Now, on the other side of things, 2 stories happened that are moving things in the right direction that nobody talked about. So, on Saturday, Pope Leo landed in Spain for the first papal visit there in 15 years. And he opened by calling for an end to polarization and said the world is crying out for peace. And as I'm putting together this News Nuggets episode right now in Peru, they're voting a runoff. Keiko Fujimori against Roberto Sanchez. And guess what? It's a peaceful transfer of power, and it's happening in real time in a country that knows exactly what the alternative looks like to that. No self-defense, no fund, just people lining up to vote, and a Pope asking people to stop being such fucking haters. Tell us why the haters are dominating the news cycle. Norm?
45 million people are staring down the barrel of a famine because of this Hormuz clusterfuck, but the outrage pimps would rather jerk off to drone footage than cover 2.5 million starving in Somalia, 2.3 million in Afghanistan, and 1.3 million in Sri Lanka. It's been 100 days of this bullshit, and the infotainment sewer cares more about one goddamn missile than the third of Somalia's population facing severe hunger, while oil stays over $100. This isn't a news cycle. It's a goddamn moral autopsy of a species that prioritizes spectacle over 45 million lives. Somebody get me a fucking drink before I go back to my hill and stay there.
Seamus, bring it home. What kind of patience deserves a week like the one we just had?
Easy now, big fella. If your blood pressure gets any higher, the WFP might try to use your forehead as a distress flare for 2.5 million starving in Somalia. But that's the trick of the trade, isn't it? The gangsters throw the party in the straight, but they send the bill to 2.3 million souls in Afghanistan and 1.3 million in Sri Lanka who weren't even invited to the feckin' dance. While the world is hooked on the dopamine hit of a drone strike, nobody wants to watch the slow peace of the Pope walking across Spain or Peruvians standing patiently in a line to vote for a president. Peace is boring, it's quiet, and it doesn't move the needle for the lads in the suits. So they sell us the spectacle, while 45 million people pay for the theatre with an empty stomach. At the end of the day, if we keep choosing the loud lie over the quiet process, we aren't just an audience, we're the ones funding the funeral. Right, that's enough of the heavy shite for one day. I'm going to go find a whiskey that's older than most of these politicians and significantly more honest.
3 stories, same week, a $70 billion retainer and $1 billion slush fund that passed the Senate at 4 a.m. while the cameras pointed at the Gulf, a ceasefire that needed 2 more days of blowing things up to stay a ceasefire, and a deal that's been bigly closed for 3 straight weeks, and the actual bill that's come due for all of it. 6 million people in 3 countries that aren't even in the war, pushed into hunger by a closed strait that they got nothing to do with. And landing in the same week, a pope asked the world to stop being a bunch of fucking polarizing fuckwads and not in those exact words, and a country we don't talk about voted for its next president without anyone needing to send in the National Guard for a refreshing change. So just pay attention to who's paying in the price that we're all paying. It's not just the U.S. taxpayers. People all over the world are paying for this illegal war. Pay attention to who's paying. This has been Gnorm's News Nuggets. Find us at loopta.com, LOOPTAH, and find the deep dives in transcripts and things of that nature on analogscott.substack.com. Find us on YouTube and Instagram at Talk to Machines, all one word. Peace to you all, and much love.